3, 2. Yeah.
I was.
What is?
I was.
What is?
Oh, you want to do it?
You go ahead, my bro.
Cool, man. How is everyone doing this fine Thursday evening? I am one of your hosts of the PS Comics podcast, PS Comics I Love You podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jared Cabacungan, aka the Dark King, and to the left, right, or to the bottom of me is the one, the only.
What if?
Okay.
What if?
Okay.
In an alternate universe, I was Filipino, and JR was white. Just saying. Just saying, dude. I'm crazy about What If right now. I am all over the What If game. I am Kevin Pillow, aka Not the Variant, at Voice of Reason 23 on all social media platforms. We're gonna get into a brief news and notes on a Loki episode, but we are here to talk about episode 5 of Loki.
Just for that brief little moment there, that little segue into his introduction was most likely if you guys most likely noticed by now, by the time this episode comes out, that the What If trailer for the Marvel trailer for What If it has just released today. I did watch it. I briefly watched a little bit because I had some other stuff to do, but I will probably watch it again most likely. And I definitely know that one of us here is super primo excited for it. Has been hyping up for a very quick minute.
Do we just want to do a watch along?
Nah.
Okay.
We shouldn't.
I will say this though, guys. We do know now what we have long speculated, that people have been wondering. Okay, we get Loki. We've got one more episode. As we, of course, this episode we're recording as our Loki episode 5. Which is Journey into Mystery, I think is the title of this episode. And this is our fifth of 6 bonus episodes for the Loki series. Season 1, huh? And people have been asking, okay, what are you gonna do next? Are you gonna do a Black Widow bonus episode? Probably not gonna be a bonus episode, but we haven't decided yet if we're gonna do episode 52 as a Black Widow recap or something like that. But we do know this. We do know this now. What if at least season 1, because they're supposedly is going to be divided into 2 seasons. What If will debut on Disney Plus on August 11th. We do have a date now, and looking at it, sticking with tradition, Disney Plus television will air on Wednesday. So, Jared, this makes me think that they've teased the What If shows as a spin on each. The way it was first advertised at Comic-Con and D23 back in 2019 was each quote episode of What If was going to be was a complete retelling of each individual Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, which at this point obviously Black Widow will make 24, but there's been 23 MCU movies. I don't think they're going to do 23 episodes, but it was kind of hinted at that each episode was going to be almost a full-length feature film, but I don't also think that's going to be the case. I think we're going to probably see at least maybe 45 minutes to an hour, but I guess it's kind of wait and see so far. But What If will debut on August 11th. That will be our next round of bonus episodes, where we will do a reaction, much like we're going to do tonight with episode 5 of Loki. So look forward to that part of season 2, which will launch in early August after we take our 2-week hiatus. But I'm super stoked about it. We have a mutual friend whose name is, we'll just call him, Mr. Z, who is a massive comic book version What If fan. And I talked to him. I ran into him at some point during the pandemic, and I asked him to say, "Hey, are you watching? Because he's not a big Star Wars fan. So are you watching The Mandalorian or stuff like that?" He's like, "Nah." He said, "Hey, they got these cool new shows that are going to be coming out next year on Disney Plus." He goes, "I don't do the streaming thing, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Mr. Z, they're going to have a What If show." "Oh, you didn't tell me that." Like, he got like perked up. And so
Yeah.
if you're a fan of the multiverse, if you're a fan of alternate realities of your Marvel comic books, this is going to be the show for you. Because based on the trailer, we saw about 2.5 minute trailer this morning, which by the way is officially, I think there's now an official barometer of breaking the internet, and apparently it has reached that barometer.
Okay.
So congratulations once again to Marvel Studios for breaking the internet. This looks like it's going to, and I hate to set the bar so high, but I think this show is going to exceed a lot of what if expectations, just based on the whoa, I didn't think about that from a what if standpoint. There's a lot of really cool things. And so if JR has a chance to watch the trailer before now, and when we record episode 52, maybe we'll do a little slight discussion about the trailer in episode 52. But nonetheless, previewing our next bonus episodes, what if August 11th. So we'll have episode 1 around that time. But we are doing Journey into Mystery, episode 5 tonight.
Yep.
So
we are.
So JR, actually, you've only seen this twice? Or sorry, no, go ahead, bro. What were you gonna say?
No, actually, let's go with your question first. If I've only seen this, I saw it the first time, I think early, no, not even early once out. I did watch it like 1.5 times, in the sense of like I watched it fully. Actually, that night it dropped, so like around 1 or 2 o'clock, right, that Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then I watched it again in the morning, right, just trying to see if I could like look at thing. But like my second viewing was like more so just like looking for the stuff that I've missed, type of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
A little more of the tidbits, everything like that. And funny enough, in my rush to look for stuff that I missed, I kind of forgot a good portions of the actual story. Right. I know I remember the bigger hindsight, of course, like, meeting the Lokis, meeting more of the Lokis, meeting, of course, coming back with some characters that we know, and the inevitable third act of the episode where all comes to a certain fruition, right?
Yeah.
And I gotta say now, just to be transparent, I thought the story would be better, in the sense of like in the sense of scale, when in comparison to the other two films, to the other two series. I know I've said before multiple times to never compare it, never try not to compare it, right?
No, but same thing.
Yeah, but in the essence of like script and story, man, I gotta say, I feel like this series in particular is kind of lacking in that sense, in the sense of like, and we'll talk about it definitely throughout, right? Because for me, it felt like a cop out when inevitably people's perceptions of a certain thing or organization was changed in a brief second, and they're now all about tearing it down. I thought that was kind of lackluster for me, right? But again, like it could have been levied in other ways to showcase it better. But for me, man, that's just it wasn't. My expectations was set pretty decently, and just this particular part, I thought they would have more of it. But then again, we'll continue with the story. We'll continue with the very beginning of the story, or the very beginning of the episode, where we do see a rematerialized Loki, our version of Loki Prime, in the midst of these 3 Lokis, right?
So
these 3 different variant Lokis.
So with that said, I'm starting the show now.
Yeah.
For those of you doing watch along style, we're starting from the Marvel Studios logo. Real quick, I want to jump on what you said though, JR. Comparing and contrasting, because for those of you who don't watch our main show that drops every week, I've been rewatching the Marvel Knights saga, which is the Marvel Netflix series, which are 13 episodes apiece. And they run about an hour long. And I was thinking about this, especially with a show like with Loki, that maybe, and I noticed this a little bit, is that it's like a person who speeds up to a stop sign to slam on their brakes.
Yeah.
They're rushing through sometimes some of these stories. I know we're only 5 episodes in, but it's a 6-episode season. It seems like they do that. They speed up to slow down at the end. And I get, we want action, we want stuff. So, but I'm wondering if they are so, and again, we don't know what went on. Obviously,
Yeah.
um, we don't know because they filmed most of these shows, WandaVision, Falcon the Winter Soldier, and Loki, under heavy COVID restrictions, and in some cases were put on stop, or put on full stop. Obviously, the first beginning of the episode, we see a trip through the TVA. We see the chamber of the timekeepers. We see the decapitated head of one of the timekeepers. We find out they're androids, and then
Mhm.
now we're going into this dystopian uh,
New York.
New York
Yeah.
that we think is New York. We do see a version of Stark Tower, Avengers Tower. It now says Kang Enterprises, wink, on the side of it. Just putting that out there. Um, but going back to what I was saying is, I'm wondering if maybe they push it, because I know on a couple episodes they only did like maybe 35, 40 minutes. If
Mhm.
they went a full 45, or a full like maybe 50 to 55 minutes, and
Mhm.
did say 7 or 8 episodes, and let each episode breathe a little bit more. I'm
Yeah.
wondering if maybe the story could be fleshed out. But at the same time, I'm realizing though, with the 13 episodes of, say, like a Luke Cage season 2, there were moments where I'm like,
Yeah. It's dragged on.
there was a lot of crutches.
Yeah.
And there's a couple episodes where it's like, okay, they did this in a different sense, the exact same thing last episode. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I wonder if like maybe just a couple more minutes here and there. But
Yeah.
again, we don't know
Yeah.
with COVID
I do.
restrictions what they were
Yeah.
under.
I do feel like though, like particularly Loki, where the budget specifically for Loki, you see in display, Eh, because not so much with the other two series, right? Where majority of time in one division is located to a particular area, right? I think it's shooting in that one area,
Yeah,
easily, right? Uh, in Falcon Winter Soldier, it was a lot more dynamic. Yes, there was a lot more there was a lot more CG in there in comparison to in comparison to entirety one division, but it was more so a mainstay on just character focused type of individuals. While Loki, I have to say, has the best visuals out of all of the three because of just the dystopian, whether you be in dystopian reality, right, a ruined New York, whether you be in a on a planet or on a moon that's being destroyed by a planet, where you are in this retro 1950s, 1960s, like like super hyper realized space town, space city, right?
yeah,
It is definitely the most stylized uh high fidelity series we have out of the bunch. And man, I feel like that it's double-edged sword because of the runtimes that we might have, of because of like how they might have need to push the story further. I do feel like if somehow Fai could like pull in a little bit more into production of the show, give them a little bit better, a little bit more of a budget, right? Higher budget, maybe an extra episode or two. I do feel like a lot of my qualms with it, lack of a better term, qualms would be alleviated. Obviously, because I do feel, like it's a very story centric type of series still, but I feel like the story isn't as filling as I thought it would be.
yeah.
But yeah.
Real quick, if you guys are watching along, we're episode 5, season 1, Journey into Mystery of Loki, and we're seeing the 5 Lokis in this case.
Mhm.
We're seeing classic Loki, the old Journey into Mystery Loki with the yellow and green. We
Mhm.
see Loki L113 is what he's referred to, or
Yeah.
JR likes to refer to him as Loki Prime, but we have to be careful
Yeah.
because is there a possibility that there is an actual
Loki Prime.
Loki
Yeah.
Prime, like a King Loki or a Loki superior, so to speak? We also see I don't know what's the I call him the Thor Loki, with the guy that's
Oh yeah, yeah.
holding.
He's the. I think he was typecasted. I think he was said to be boastful Loki or like prideful Loki or one of those.
Yeah,
Y-
okay, that's right. The boastful Loki is what I heard.
Yeah.
We also get Kid Loki, the one that
Yep.
JR has been waiting for the most, or
Mhm.
actually in this case, he actually is, in
King
this
Loki.
instance,
Yeah.
King Loki, or
Yeah.
Pirate Loki, also he's known as. And
Mhm.
speaking of pirate, we see a pirate ship
Mhm.
in this dystopian, which we now know is known is not it's not New York. It's known as the Void, and the Void is the end of all time. It's where all of the pruned existence, all the timelines that were quote pruned by the TVA agents.
Mhm.
When they go in and they grab a variant, pull them to the TVA, and then they set off one of the time bombs, and
Yeah.
they don't get destroyed. It gets sent to the end of time, and almost kind of like a time dumpster, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so all the things that we're seeing are these time dumps. So we see a pirate ship, which we believe could be Kid Loki's pirate ship. We see a UFO.
Mhm.
We also get to see a craft that looks eerily familiar to a previous one, head of Hydra's spaceship from Captain America: First Avenger.
Mhm.
Then we see an Easter egg, Jr., that set the internet abuzz yesterday, and that is we
One.
get to see a helicopter.
Oh, that one.
Looks like an old, like 1970s, 1960s helicopter, kind of like almost like the Batcopter, so to speak,
Yeah.
out of Batman 66. And it says Thanos on the side. And from what I understand, this is ripped from an old Spidey kid adventures from like 1978 or something like that. And
The
Thanos is flying through New
yeah.
York in this helicopter trying to
Yeah.
find
The
the
Thanos
cosmic
cop,
cube.
yeah, the Thanos copter has been a well-known meme that's been used and been actually popularized recently by the one and only Deadpool, where Deadpool has Jack. He I'm pretty sure I talked about it in a previous episode a long while back, right? If you guys do deep dive about Deadpool basically having having the Infinity Gauntlet, right? And near the end of like the a certain like death event in the comics at the time, right? He was actually in the Thanos copter and he hijacked the Thanos copter. And
I'm gonna
so
have to go back and look for that one.
yeah, it's definitely in there. So, like the last I think 6 years or so, that's when the event happened. So Thanos Copter does make its rounds every now and then, and it's a fun little nod, it's a cute little nod. It's definitely like used as a joke,
Yeah,
obviously, right? Because Thanos, being the mad conquering titan he is not going to be seen in a freaking copter,
no,
right? And so if majority of the time you will see Thanos copter, I'm pretty sure Deadpool is pretty freaking close behind. But yeah, going into the episode in general, you see you see our Loki, we'll call him main character Loki now, MC Loki. There you go, MC Loki. That's actually a pretty cool name. He wakes up, sees the three, and then basically all the three said, "We gotta get up. You gotta survive." Well, what my question is, what are we gonna do these things? How are we gonna do this? And all three of them go, "We have to survive. That's it. We got to survive." They bring him back. They bring him through the ruins of this place, where yeah, we see just desolate areas, crazy amounts of like rubble and things popping in and out of existence, right? There was a particular one where you see we do see the helicopter, but another one where we see uh a ship come out of nowhere. That's actually much later in the film, in the episode. But we see bits and pieces of reality just plopped in here,
yeah,
like uh like my compatriot said, like a freaking dumpster, basically. And so we have all the Lokis go into their private area, I guess, their little
the
hiding
private
hole,
little bunker.
a little bunker,
Yeah,
right? And in that little bunker, we see our another nod as all Loki go down. They have that little screen pan where it goes underneath the surface. We see Thor's hammer, which Thor, we have no clue, and in a glass jar, a frog Thor trying to grab that hammer, which is hilarious to me. And so that was pretty
I
cool.
did think that. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah,
And then of course we get to see this kind of underground layer that the boastful Loki, classic Loki, Kid Loki, and Gator Loki
yeah,
are a part of. And we see kind of a candy cane throne. We do know later that Kid Loki
hmm,
um, is the king of this particular layer. He is the King Loki of this of the void.
yeah,
The other thing that we saw in this episode was uh, when you mentioned the um, the when Loki L113 or MCU Loki, Loki 2012, Avengers Loki, whatever you want to call him, is kind of awoken by the three gentlemen behind me. Obviously, boastful Loki, classic Loki, and then Kid Loki's kind of behind me if you're watching the YouTube version. And you tell him to get up because there is a another. I hate to use the term smoke monster for those of you who are fans of Lost. But there is a creature, a smoke creature, brewing behind them, and it looks like almost like a dragon. And this being is kind of the devourer of the void. He devours beings, and I can't remember for the life of me what that being's name is.
Aether or something like that, like
Something like that.
something
We'll
like
get
that,
it here in a moment. Fast forward, we see, in my opinion, we see for a moment that maybe Ravonna Renslayer. We're back in the TVA. Sylvia's there with Miss Minute and Ravonna, and we see maybe there's a bit of a truce or kind of a partnership of brewing, but then it dissolves quite quickly. Where Ravonna is kind of tricked Sylvie in trying to be captured, and we start to see that maybe Ravonna Renslayer is the bad guy here, which we've kind of hinted at the last couple of weeks. And then we get to see something I didn't see coming, JR, and that is, Sylvie gets cornered behind the judge's like desk, so to speak, which is Ravonna's. She has one of those pruning sticks still, as she held Ravonna hostage. Now she's got TVA agents, some hunters that are, or no, they call them Minutemen. The Minutemen are coming in on. So Sylvie looks at the stick, the little pruning stick, and she activates it after, by the way, nod, puts the TemPad in her back pocket. That's Ravonna's. Activates the pruning stick and then immediately turns it on herself, almost like an act of suicide. But I think at this point we now know that through Ravonna telling her, Sylvie knows she prunes herself. She's going to the end of time. She's going to go to the void, and there is where she can find her friend Loki. Loki MCU.
MC Loki. I gotta say, man, this is where the part of the story just got really hokey to me.
A little bit.
It got super hokey because like at the beginning of the series, I always thought that I felt like the TVA, aspect of the story was gonna be the most interesting part. But now it's devolved to the point where like, okay, cool, corporation, the bad people, this thing again, and that you don't believe anything what they got to say. And because of, for me, my particular stance is that now it's hokey to me. All the acting that's come from it, it just seems hokey, man. Like I'm pretty sure the actress who plays Renslayer is a great actress, man. But like it's hard for me to get past the fact, man. I'm like, yo, okay, cool. You just seen one Sylvie. You just seen her slice up your boy and disintegrate him, and now you want to shake her hand because her entire existence is now out of order. And then and then you're surprised when she has people come in. I'm like, come on, dude. Like it was just pretty hokey to me, the whole thing. And I was really hoping that we just push forward past it. And I'm glad they did. And like there is still some scenes with Renslayer sprinkled in the episode of her trying to figure out, okay, cool. Now I'm actually want to know who's behind the whole, who created the whole TVA. Man, it just feels super forced to me at that point for the whole this whole arc of the TVA now, which I swore they were gonna be something better than what we've seen now. It is what it is. But I'm glad they pushed past that, and there's more story of just Sylvie and the Lokis now, and them trying to figure out, the what's the whole ordeal behind who's actually controlling not just one the TVA, but who is trying to set things in motion with time in general. And so that was cool.
I will say that this was kind of interesting that the variants we learned from classic Loki this one.
Yeah.
After again, you're watching the video. For those watching listening to the audio version, it's the older Loki gentleman that has the really old 1960s, 1970s costume on with the over exaggerated horns at the front. Classic Loki starts describing by the request of Loki. I think that they officially call him Loki L113.
Yeah.
He starts telling the story of his interaction with Thanos. So we learn here that though they live on different timelines, and it's assumed that Loki L113 or MC Loki lives on the quote sacred timeline, that each individual one has almost the identical timeline in activities, so to speak. And so they kind of meet drinking some Rocks Cart wine. They start talking about their interaction with Thanos. And obviously the Loki that we know in this show has not been yet killed by Thanos because he was plucked from 2012's Avengers. But he knows what his quote end game is, no pun intended. And that he was killed at the hands of Thanos in the activities of post Ragnarok, as he says it in the story. So I just thought that it was kind of interesting that each one has had their own interaction with Thanos. Boastful Loki talks about, oh, I killed Thanos and I killed Iron Man and I wielded all the Infinity Stones. And they of course call him out and say it's bullshit.
Yeah.
What was it? Kid Loki says, I think, what did they say? He killed Thor.
Yeah, no, it was his Nexus event was that he killed Thor.
That's what it was. The Nexus event. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting. And then of course we get to see probably one of the most anticipated moments in this show, and that is when Loki L113 goes to leave the bunker, so to speak, and he opens up the lid to find the one, the only President Loki, the variant that we've been waiting for, so that Vote Loki issue number 1 can now sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I know that since the very first trailer, that's what people have been waiting for, is that the first appearance of President Loki, so that they can resell that book. But we now see Sylvie come into the void, and now she is under attack of this smoke monster. And God, I can't think of what it's called.
I will say, actually, to kind of go back just a little bit, during the conversation of the Lokis, right, there was one particular line where older Loki, right, has said where he said that every Loki, I forgot the full-on verbiage, but it was more so in terms of like every Loki is means to be destroyed, or is to be a tragic type of character, right? And he saw, I think they gave themselves the line of like the god of the outsider or something like that.
Yeah,
the god of the outsider, and that Loki, being a Loki, is basically to lose type of thing. And we see that our Loki, MC Loki, is like very much against that, and he understands the future that was supposed to happen to him, and he's like, well, there's things that change. He talks about Sylvie, and that she's different, and that she's the one that's gonna try to fix everything. I'm pretty sure this was the part, or maybe this was the part they said it. And that's when, of course, he leaves and he sees the other not just President Loki, but all the other Lokis that were there.
There's a bunch of other there's a bunch, and then we find out that they are his army, so to speak.
So that was an interesting find. But going back to Sylvie, she awakens in a blown out bus, and then she notices that this huge smoke monster, quote unquote.
Still trying to figure out what the fuck it's called.
Now you got me doing it. Elf something, right? Is the dragon, the smoke dragon monster, notices her presence and is rushing after. She gets out, and then
Alioth, that's it. Alioth.
There you go, Alioth. I was close. So Alioth comes in to try eat her, basically, and then for a brief moment, as she kind of like is entangled in, I guess, a tendril of life, she tries to enchant it, and for a brief second she sees something. Don't know what it is, but she sees something. And so just from that aspect, she kind of knows what she's dealing with in a certain regard. But she's just running away. She runs away to a point where she gets to a field and a car, a pizza, I think a pizza bug or whatever, right? Is seen craning down this field towards her, and lo and behold, it is our Mobius. Mobius is actually back, and Mobius comes there to save her. And I gotta say, I knew that we weren't gonna it wasn't the last of us seeing our guy Mobius, man. But I gotta say, man, I'm just glad to see him. I really am.
Oh yeah.
He was definitely one of the high points of the series for me.
I will say this: what's really cool, what I did like about the outsiders, as you call them,
Mm.
the boastful Loki, Kid Loki, and classic Loki, and alligator Loki, or
Outcast. There you go. Yeah,
the
the
outcast. I'm sorry,
outcast.
you're right. Outcast. That's what it's called.
Gods of
Sorry,
Death.
outsiders. I've been watching a lot of NWO this
Yeah.
week, so I'm thinking Scott Hall, Kevin Nash.
Hmm.
The outcasts. I'm liking classic Loki because we find out as the show progresses, and same thing in like going to harken back to what I was talking about with their each individual interaction with Thanos, was Loki says, well, wait a minute. Me, later down the road, did not survive the hands of Thanos. I was choked out, yada, yada, yada. But classic Loki says, well, I was able to project myself and basically trick Thanos into thinking that he killed me, but really he killed a a trick,
Yeah.
a projection, so to speak, and he projected himself, his actual body, as trash, and was able to sneak off. So we learned from that story on that this classic Loki has got some serious magical powers,
Yeah.
and we see how they escape the bunker, so to speak, when we find out boastful Loki um,
Yeah.
basically tricks the outcasts into um, uh,
Give their place. Yeah.
basically boastful Loki handed over the outcast and Loki L113 to President Loki and his minions, which then turned into full anarchy.
Yeah.
And so classic Loki was able to project very similar to that of a portal um, created by the Tesseract. He's able to get out of there and move on. So even Loki, our main Loki, MC Loki, L113, is like, whoa, what the hell is this? And he goes through the portal and he escapes.
Yeah.
So the groundwork is laid that this classic Loki has got some serious sick magic powers. So
Well, yeah. I mean, if anything came to be, this classic Loki, right, is probably the closest version to the main timeline Loki, right? MC Loki, because
yeah,
he does go through the whole aspect of like him going through basically Endgame, but not dying. And the second that he gets off the planet, he said before that, he spent his days on a planet and he just took himself off the board, right? He's probably the most neutral Loki, right, at this point, where he just doesn't want to do anything. He takes him off the board. If he's a Loki, he's there and he's destined to do bad things, he'd rather just like leave it, right? It reminds me of DC Vertigo's Lucifer, right? Where he's like, if Lucifer's like, if I'm bound to do evil, right, and people view me as that, right, I might as well just take myself off the board and just live in like LA or something, which technically this Loki did. He lived in the off-world planet by himself until old age, until he got lonely. And the second that he tried to step foot off his planet, the TVA showed up. And
and this
I feel like
good,
this Loki, right, the old Loki, is very much closely attached to the current Loki, right, MC Loki,
absolutely.
as well as the Loki that actually died during Endgame. He is, I feel like, yeah, he's the closest one, while at the same time he also is he is the closest callback to classic comic book Loki, where yeah, those were his original powers. He's able to have some type of manipulation of portals, where he does have this wide array of magic powers, right? Where he is super strong. He is granted, the comic book Loki is much stronger, right? They have yet to actually tap into that, but he's pretty close, right? This is the closest Loki, and I'm glad that they displayed him now because yeah, it does really break open the doors of how strong a Loki can be if he stops focusing on his knives and he starts focusing on his magic, right? Which he does say throughout. He does say he does make hint to at during the episode. Yeah.
I will say this, and it goes back, and you brought a great point. I didn't think about this until you just said this. Was we talked about 3 weeks ago when we were first introduced to Lady Loki. We find out later she's Sylvie. Sylvie in the comic books is the Enchantress. We assumed because Sylvie continues to talk about her enchantments, that she's the Enchantress.
Mhm.
And in some of the different mediums of Marvel comics, TV, cartoons, and stuff like that, Loki, much like classic Loki, much like Loki main timeline MCU L113 Loki, is finds himself floating through space. Now, like JR mentioned, classic Loki escapes he escapes death of Thanos, exiles himself to a planet, gets bored, tries to escape, found by the TVA. Loki at the end of at the end of the first Thor movie, falls off the rainbow, or lets himself go, kind of commit suicide, so to speak, off the Rainbow Bridge. Um, is found by Thanos and his group, saved, given the scepter and the Mind Stone, and we know where that went. In Loki, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the cartoon, similar situation happens. He falls into space, lands into an alternate universe where he is saved by, you guessed it, we mentioned it before, the Enchantress. So it's funny how these three different stories are very kind of similar, and like you said, Jer, they're very similar to that of the comic book. Though I think Loki in the main Earth 616 tellings of in the comic book continuity, his interactions with Sylvie and the Enchantress goes a little differently. We know that Sylvie, the Enchantress in the comic books, gets her powers from Loki. And of course, in the MCU, it's Sylvie gets her powers because she is Loki. I know it's kind of all confusing, but it's very interesting that these three storylines kind of all float around. I know that the Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon is not considered canon and stuff like that. It's considered an alternate universe. Sorry, I've been reading a lot about the multiverse lately. And
Good.
I wanted to know where just a side note real quick, as we see, if you're doing watch along, we see Hunter C-15
Yeah.
um, is in kind of locked up in this red void, so to speak. And Ravonna Renslayer unlocks her for a moment.
Mhm.
I did not know. I always was kind of curious. I didn't know about the multiverse until probably about, I'd say, 5 or 6 years ago, and it was a reference in an episode of Big Bang Theory. And it was funny, was Penny in the episode goes, "What's a multiverse?" And Sheldon's like, "Ugh," and looks at um, Leonard Hofstadter and goes, "What do you see in her?" And I was that guy. I was Penny. I was
Yeah.
like, "What is the multiverse?" So I've really kind of jumped down the rabbit hole of the
Yeah.
multiverse. And the first appearance of the multiverse is What If Volume 1, Issue number 1. So
Yep.
for the longest time, I thought what ifs were just side stories, but no, what ifs are the telling
Yep.
of the multiverse, so to speak. But
Just for
yeah,
yes, yeah, just for small reference's sake for those who don't know or those who have some mention of the multiverse is basically in Marvel terms, right? In Marvel, MCU, not just MCU, but like just Marvel in general, how they classify multiverse is that it's an infinite number of realities. So infinite, right? DC is different. So because DC has a set number of realities, even though they call it multiverse, while Marvel in itself is the truer quote unquote sense of the multiverse, where if there's an infinite amount of realities, there's an infinite amount of happenings, and so every decision that you make, don't make, think of making, where it was gonna make or have made horrible, has happened, will happen again, and it will happen in infinite variety of that manner. And so that's what Marvel has been doing since they've been doing that since the 70s, man. They really, really went like full bore and I think with DC, they've gone into it recently with Grant Morrison, because Grant Morrison is is one of the main guys in DC to kind of flesh out the multiverse, even though they had Crisis on Infinite Earths happen for quite a while.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's the thing with multiverse. It is incredibly huge. When you hear us say Earth 616, that is literally a multiverse of where the mainline comics derive from, and like they can go as high as to like 1 million or 1,000 or something like that.
Yeah. Well, like for example, I read that the Marvel multiverse, Earth 616 is mainline continuity,
Yep.
the origin of the Marvel superheroes. So for you lay fans, the stories that you know and love, Captain America, Steve Rogers, Super Soldier Serum, fights the Nazis alongside of his boyfriend, his kid friend,
Yeah.
Bucky Barnes. um and there's all kinds of different stories and stuff like that of how he dies and goes in the ice. I think in the comic book, he what tries to fight off a nuclear bomb and falls into the ice,
Yeah.
and Bucky Barnes gets stuck on it and he falls into the ice and becomes the Winter Soldier, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But the X-Men, Spider-Man, Peter Parker being bit by the radioactive spider, Fantastic Four, all that. That's main Earth's. That's
Yep.
616. That's mainline continuity.
Yeah.
The Ultimates universe. That's like Earth
1610.
1610.
Yeah.
What I did not know is in Marvel Comics continuity,
Hmm.
the Marvel Cinematic Universe
Yeah.
has a a multiverse call sign, and that is Earth 1009. I'm sorry, no, it's Earth 199,999.
Yep.
So in the comic books, the MCU is in
Yeah.
comic book continuity.
Yep.
It's not connected to Earth 616, but it just means that if, say, Earth 616 is, Peter Parker steps through a time vortex, he could end up in
Yeah.
MCU and whatnot. So
Yeah.
now I will say this is kind of funny. Sidebar real quick, as we're
Mm.
now seeing the two Loki, Sylvie and L113, interacting and really kind of falling for one another.
Yeah.
Um, Kevin Feige just entered into the Marvel comic continuity, part of the what do they call it? That X-Men event that's going on.
Oh, the gala?
The gala of the
Gala night?
Hellfires Club gala.
Yeah.
Supposedly, I think it's an X-Men 21. No, anyway, I'll find it. Maybe we'll talk about it on our last episode. But Kevin Feige is at the gala. So is um oh, I can't think of her name now. She's
Mm.
works for Marvel.com, but there are Marvel employees in this comic book
Yeah.
now. But it's just so funny that Kevin Feige, the maestro of the MCU, is actually now
Technically a part of Earth 616.
canonically
Yeah.
a Marvel Earth 616
Yeah.
character. So thought that was kind of interesting. But um yeah, I now I'm kind of enjoying the little, for lack of a better term, love story between
Yeah.
Loki and Sylvie. But this is kind of where it kind of hit the skids a little bit last night, and I know a lot of people said they kind of slept through this one. But I don't know.
Which
I,
part?
I'm
Like
it's where the two of them are talking. They have the
uh
blanket around them and stuff like that.
I mean, like it it did really feel forced at this point, right? Like they're trying to wrap things up somewhat nicely, and then hopefully go on to the big reveal in the last episode, where hopefully they'll set up whatever have they, right? I do feel like now we see the effects of the COVID crisis happen, and that a lot of this stuff felt really rushed, man, because I feel definitely that if they add a little bit more, a couple, like at least 10 more minutes per se, right, during each episode, right? Even though I know 10 minutes, even 1 minute is freaking a lot. and when it comes to budget. But I do feel like if they add just a little bit more time and fleshed out, the relationships between people, I do feel like this particular scene would have been earned better. It just for me, man, like I'm still all in the vibe of like, all right, cool. It's still very much Loki trying to find love for himself, right? That all the Loki is really just need
Yeah.
just need that one person to believe in them, type of thing, and that this whole the whole interaction of I felt like the better scene was the Lokis, right? Older Loki and younger Loki with Mobius. That scene I felt was a lot better in the sense of like
Yeah,
just trying to
that's the one
find
we're
like,
watching.
yeah,
We're watching right now.
yeah, just like the scenes of like saying that not all Lokis are meant to like you're not all destined to destroy or whatever. You just happen to be, and I feel like they're not all Lokis are broken type of thing because I know that that the classic Loki, the second they get out of the bunker, right? He goes on a rant that says that all of us are meant to destroy, or all of us are meant to be broken, and and that's why we can't ever be whole or whatever, right? And we have that little callback go back within this episode with Mobius, and I feel like that had a lot more clarity, a lot more levity than sadly the Loki scene, man, the Loki and Sylvie scene, man. It
Oh
just
yeah, I know which line you're talking about. It's happening right now, and that
yeah,
is the Lokis make the decision. Sylvie is going to stay. She thinks she can connect with Eliath with using her enchantment.
yeah,
Um, here I know Loki L113 says, "What are you going to do at the TVA?" He says, "Burn it to the ground," which is a callback to episode one, I believe, one or two, where Loki says to Mobius, "I'm going to burn the TVA to the ground."
yeah,
So Mobius goes back through, uses the temp pad. He's able to get a window or get a
yeah,
door back to the
yeah,
TVA. Like I
yeah.
said, Sylvie and Loki are going to stay. Classic Loki says, "No, I'm going to stay. This is our home." Kid Loki says the same thing. Kid Loki hands over his golden dagger
Mhm.
to L113.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, for those who keep a close eye, Loki used a golden dagger in Agents of Asgard. I think it was an issue of Agents of Asgard. So it's
Yep.
again called back. There's a lot of Easter eggs in this episode as the our two protagonists go towards Eliath, which is also a main continuity of the Marvel Comics character that is last seen, hint, hint, on Acropolis, I think is what it's called, the homeland of Kang the Conqueror.
Mhm.
Um, Now, I did not know this. Why a lot of people are thinking, like, okay, when Sylvie connects with Eliath and uses her enchantment on it, she's able to see what's inside the smoke. And it's a castle with a light on top of one of its towers. You see, albeit briefly, what looks like the silhouette of some kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, kind of kind of see a little bit of a silhouette of of a city, so to
Yeah.
speak. Maybe calling back to when we see, I think it's called Acropolis in Ant-Man and the Wasp in the quantum realm, um, where we see the hometown or the living space, so to speak, of Kang the Conqueror. So a lot of little, like I said, a lot of little Easter eggs,
Yeah.
and we see, okay, Loki, I'm going to create the distraction. He's going to use the golden dagger, which we know can conjure up a fire to distract Eliath. Sylvie is going to try and uh, use her powers against Eliath
Yeah.
in enchantment, but it's learned very quickly here that the two of them separate cannot
Yeah.
do what they want to do because Eliath turns on Sylvie very quickly, and he's like, and Loki's like, oh crap, like this is not going to work, and this is one of my favorite parts. This is where we see a just the ultimate distraction, and all of a sudden Eliath turns on a dime and starts, what is this? And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this green projection of Asgard is put up, and we see classic Loki using some of the probably the most amount of his powers probably ever. And we probably, like JR said, like you said earlier, classic Loki, harken back to his comic continuity,
Mhm.
is um really
Severely,
kind of just
he's
just
severely
throwing some
OP.
powers down.
Yeah, it's just that like, yeah, classic Loki is like classic comic book Loki is pretty friggin' OP in a sense because like and like we're the only people that can truly defeat him, right? Is of course his brother and his father and like people of that tier. Right, and people are gonna start or people are gonna harken back to like, oh, when Hulk beat him down in MCU. Well, that's the MCU. Granted, I think that might have happened in certain occasion, right, during a certain run during the Avengers comics line, if I remember correctly. It's just that like Loki's super powerful in regards to just using in regards to just using magic, and I don't know how the MCU tend to forgot that, right? But when they first chose him to be the first main big bad, right, of Avengers, that was a great choice. It's just that he should have wielded way more power than what they showed. But understandably so, you don't want to have your guy be too overpowered, right?
Yeah,
Like, we don't want to have your first villain be way overpowered to the point where like, all right, cool, he's gonna have somehow Thanos gonna somehow dwarf him in that essence. So other than that, man, yeah, the classic Loki, pretty 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 accurate to his powers. And yeah, man, I just glad they showed that scene where they where we see MC, Loki, and Sylvie see that what they're possible of, what they're possibly capable of. And so I gotta say too, man, this whole kind of corny line for me again, my little thing again with the episodes that were like, oh, we got to work together type of thing, right? It felt like one of
yeah.
those like cheesy, oh, we have to pull our powers together in order to enchant this thing. I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. I'm trying to bide my tongue. I'm still into the series, but I'm like at this point, man, I'm like, come on, man, it's just a little too hokey for me, man. A little bit too corny at this point.
I will say one probably my favorite moment of this episode just happened. It's where classic Loki uh finally has his glorious purpose,
Yeah.
and that is to distract Eliath so that Loki and Sylvie can uh, enchant Eliath and move on into
Yeah.
the smoke. But he sits there and he's conjuring and he's got the full classic Loki costume on, and his laugh and his facial expressions is so comic book accurate.
Yep.
I mean, it's almost as if Jack Kirby is drawing this actor laughing maniacally at this smoke monster, but it's being acted by a professional actor. It was so great. This like I said, this like over the top maniacal laugh as he's
Mhm.
staring down death, and again, no pun intended, his end game. We see our two protagonists move towards what is now the opening of Eliath, and we see inside the smoke, and there is that castle
Mhm.
that Sylvie um, saw glimpses of
Yep.
earlier in the episode, and that is where the episode ends. And we will pick up next week for the final episode of this season. Um, Jerry, you mentioned before that this one kind of was a little cheesy, corny, a little bit
Yeah.
maybe, but
The
was kind of lackluster. Where do you rank episode five on out of the other five episodes?
Oh man, that's a tough one. It's definitely one of the lower ones for me. I gotta go back to my rankings of like which episodes per se. But for me, as of right now, I'll probably say out of 1 to 5, number 4.
Yeah, I think that my number one is probably going to be um I really think they came out strong. I
Yep.
enjoyed episode one.
Mm-hmm.
Episode two was good. Three fell off a little bit for me.
Yeah.
But I think after rewatching it, I think that you could probably put episode three up there as my number two or my number three. Episode 4 was good. I would have to say, in order, I'd probably go 1, 3, 4, 2, 5. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, I enjoyed 4. I like the build towards um the unveiling
Yeah.
of the timekeepers, and of course the ultimate swerve. They're androids. We
Yeah.
get into then of course we get our first post credit scene where we get introduced to
Yeah.
the outcast, as you see before, behind
Mm.
us. By the way, this version of the picture behind me, Jr. If you're watching the YouTube channel, has the actual clip from the show, but the version I have behind me is thanks to our friend Boss Logic. He redid the clip that JR has posted, and he kind of turned it into a rap album cover, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool. So I just thought it was kind of funny. So I stole that from Boss Logic. But yeah,
Yeah.
I would have to say it's not my favorite, but I can see its importance.
Yeah.
It does really kind of set the bar up a little bit for the final episode. How
Yeah.
can they close this out? And
Yeah.
also, this episode, no post credit scene,
Yep.
which was unusual because not that we're entitled to a post credit scene at all, but what can they possibly give us
Yeah.
in in the
And the last
in
one,
the
I
in the
wonder how.
last one?
I wonder how long the last episode actually will be. Will it be still be in that 44 minute range? Will it be a
Let's
little
see
bit
if they
less than
posted
that?
it or
Maybe
not.
33? Will it be an hour type of thing, right? Like how long? How long of an episode do they need for it to really, hopefully, answer most of the questions that has been asked during the series, right? I'm for damn sure know that they're not gonna answer absolutely everything, right? They're not gonna answer, what variations of Loki has been out there. They're not gonna answer, who was Renslayer before this. They're not gonna answer. They might not answer, like if there are different TVA variants, like agencies, right? Or if they're like if there are other type of humanoid TVA agents, right? Because the only type of agents we've seen are humanoid, are humans. We have yet to see any type of Asgardians. We have yet to see any type of like uh what was I forgot his name, man. Quill's daddy.
Ego.
Quill's dad. No. His the adopted father.
Yondu.
Yeah, we have never seen any type of like Yondu, or we haven't seen any non-Earthlings basically in the TBA. So like
No, not really.
that's what I'm saying, right? So like I'm pretty sure they're not gonna answer that question. I'm hoping they do, because like if they do, why just Earthlings? Like why just Earthlings? You
Yeah,
have
yeah.
you have Asgardians, you have possibly other forms. I know for damn sure they're not gonna show mutants, but like some other type of variety in that sense. So
It
it's a
is,
toss up,
but they did mention it. They did say um that the TVA has hosted, like I think you just said it too, was they have hosted Titans, they've hosted the
Yeah.
Kree,
Kree.
vampires.
Yep.
It's but you're right. For the most part,
It's
they've
just
been
human.
humanoid
Yeah.
beings.
Which is
No real aliens.
yeah, which is crazy to me, because like if this is technically, been seen or forecasted as like the TVA has been created, before this timeline came to be, the when did this version of Earth came to be in existence? There has to be, like, I don't know if it's just a budget type of thing. I don't know if it's because of like, if it's because of like the COVID related type of scenario. It's just, for me, man. I feel like they're not going to answer all of these questions, and I'm hoping that the budget for next season is much bigger, maybe a lot more grandiose, because that's what Loki honestly is, super grandiose. Hoping that's the case. And yeah, man, this definitely isn't my favorite episode.
It's not a
It's
bad
not my
episode.
it's not a bad episode at all. It's just that like it's sped up and slow, it's sped up and slowed, and when it slowed down in certain parts that honestly for me was unnecessary. Yes, the whole thing where they're trying to bridge this weird romantic type of leeway into Loki, falling for Sylvie, even though they're technically the same individual, right? And they're
Yeah.
really hemming on that point now with the whole cloak over her shoulder and stuff. I'm like, get on with it, please get
Yeah.
on with it. Like it's, yeah, I don't know, but I'm just hoping that it really does end well. I'm really hoping that we do get some type of hype train. Maybe it is Kang. Maybe it is something else. Maybe we see, I don't know, let's say Reed Richards. I'm pretty sure
Well,
it's gonna happen, but yeah.
here is the growing theory is that in one of the early teaser trailers we saw a throne room similar to that of Odin's throne room on Asgard, and sorry, a little dust on the camera there. And there's a scene that's teased to be in this show
Yeah.
of a throne room similar to that of Odin, like I said, Odin's throne room on Asgard. um Obviously we know in most, and again we learned in this episode
Yeah.
that on almost all of the timelines, including the quote sacred timeline, which is the main MCU timeline, Asgard has been destroyed. Ragnarok has taken place. We know that classic Loki talked about it. That's where he escaped, same way.
Yeah.
Ragnarok happens, he ends up on the ship, avoids Thanos, doesn't get killed. We know our Loki, again, as I refer to him as L113, that's his name given in episode one, that he dies at the hands of Thanos in the events of Infinity War shortly after Ragnarok. Kid Loki, I can't remember what he said he did in Ragnarok. Boastful Loki, you can't believe a word he comes out of his mouth, so he really didn't say. We do know that on most of these timelines, if not all of them, Ragnarok has happened. So, this scene that we saw that back in the teaser trailer for Loki, the series, shows a Loki on the throne of Asgard in Odin's throne room. What does that mean? Is it a flashback? We have not seen that scene yet. To go back to what JR said, have we actually met Loki Prime? That is there a true superior Loki out there? Is that the quote end of all of this? We don't know. There's a lot of theories, like JR have said. I have heard the Reed Richards one. Obviously, Kang the Conqueror is the main
I will say,
theory.
I will say this. If the MCU is attached to the mainline Marvel and multiverse, right? I'm gonna just say this out loud. The main Loki Prime is Earth 616 Loki. And he, sadly enough, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, just died after the end of the War of the Realms arc that happened about a year ago.
Yeah, and I haven't. I don't think maybe I did get all the War of the Realms books. I can't remember. I was no, I take that back. I had quit collecting Thor at that point. I really had just for those of you who don't, again, just to end on these, really some of the best writing that has been in comic books in the last 10-15 years. We have kissed Tanahashi Coates' ass so much on this show. It's unbelievable, but he deserves it. The guy's an incredible writer. His run on both Captain America and Black Panther is amazing.
Yeah.
The writing for I've been a huge fan of Christopher Hastings and the goings on of Gwenpool, but Jason Aaron's run on Thor and the Mighty Thor in the mid 2010s, so like 2014, 2015, 2016, is incredible. And then of course he did Unworthy Thor, and then I believe he did the Thor that led up to War of the Realms, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he did.
And did he oversee War of the Realms or no?
I think he was a big part of it. I know that there were just way too many damn books for him to do everything, but I'm pretty sure he did the mainline story.
Okay.
Which was the case. But again, we had this conversation about fucking mainline storylines hijacking the individual stories to just function off of one mainline event, because you need all fucking Marvel characters in one fucking book for eight issues. We've talked about that shit before. It's stupid, annoying, and like really fucks up the actual storylines from separate characters. Regardless of that, you were saying.
No, I was just gonna say to go back, because to talk about what JR said with the Earth 616. um, Loki dying at the end of War of the Realms, it just reminded me of Jason Aaron. Just wanted to give a cheap plug for his writing. He's such a good writer, and I know that Jason Aaron is not heavily, but he is very much involved with Thor: Love and Thunder, because a lot of his writings are the inspiration for the film that Taika Waititi just finished directing.
Oh, yeah.
Which I really enjoy because, much like, with, Jessica Jones on the Marvel Knight side, they went to Michael Gaidos and Brian Michael Bendis and really, used them for resources for doing Jessica Jones. They used a lot of Tanahashi Coates for Black Panther. I know they've brought in, numerous writers of shows. I can't remember what it was, that they did around. They had like a whole roundtable of writers,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
for something. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, just a cheap plug for them. Guys, let us know in the comments below what you thought of episode 5. What do you think is going to happen in episode 6? What are your theories? Is it King the Conqueror? Is there a superior Loki? Is, like JR said, wild card? Do we finally get to see John Krasinski as Reed Richards? I don't know.
John Krasinski, and not anyone else in the.
No,
It has to be John Krasinski. It has to be John Krasinski.
I'm telling you right now,
Yeah.
with the direction they're going with the multiverse, all bets are off. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
So guys, thank you so much for watching our bonus episode. Let us know what you thought in the comments below. If you're watching on YouTube, send us your idea. Send us your comments if you're listening to the audio version on Twitter at PS Comics. I love the letter U. Let us know, and then of course we'll post some stuff on Instagram and Facebook for you guys to comment on, or you can send us an email, pscomicsiloveyou@gmail.com.
Yep.
And I will say this: when we do ever get around to raffling off those Art Germ and J. Scott Campbell books, if you guys send us an email and we read your comments or your email on the air, we will enter an extra ticket into the drawing for those books. And like I said, JR's got some top secret shit that he isn't even telling us about yet that he might be doing. So again, there's some cool swag that we got coming on that, hey, we've been waiting almost a full year to give away. We may have to wait another year because it may get carried over into season 2.
Yeah. If that does happen, man, you guys will be pleasantly surprised. But people who will definitely win this raffle we're trying to do, man. But again, thank you guys for everything. And just for a small tidbit too, if you guys are still reading comic books right now, like us, man, another great writer is of course Al Ewing, who has been doing Marvel Hulk for quite a while now. Of course, I can't say nothing but love, of course, to my boy DC, Donny Cates. And I think the current run right now he's doing a Venom just ended. He's going to do, I think he's going to go full force into Hulk and something else. I forgot which one. But yeah, guys.
I know Marvel's going a lot of different directions this fall. Another new relaunch is coming,
which is fine.
Whatever. We've just become used to it.
Yeah, it's like once you're in the comic book game, I'm pretty sure for all our old school viewers who have been in the comic game for a minute, you know what's going up. Like every about 4 or 5 years, there's a soft reboot of most stuff. That it just happened to DC with New Frontier, I think. Yeah, New Frontier, and then it's gonna happen again with MC, with Marvel, with other stuff. We see just a bunch of new characters and cast all that stuff. So again, guys, thank you very much for rocking with us, man. Thank you so much for just all your comments, all your love, all your support, man. And definitely cannot wait for episode 52. That will hopefully come out to you guys within the week, as of this filming. And
yep.
Thank you guys.
And of course, we will, like I said, like Jared said, episode 52 will bring our main series, our main shows for season 1 to a close. Technically, we will close out, though the bonus episodes weren't kind of, if your guys are number nerds like I am, the bonus episodes aren't quote part of season 1, but we will officially wrap season 1 with Loki episode 6 next week, before we go on hiatus for 2 weeks and I go on vacation. So guys, thank you so much. As always, I do want to one quick note, for those of you living here in the Coachella Valley, I just want to throw that out there. It is the summertime. It is hotter than hell. Please be safe out there, guys. Both JR and I, the last week or so, have been wiped out at least 2 or 3 days by this heat. where
Right.
we actually couldn't get recording done. Like I was even talking about not doing the recording today, but I was feeling good. I was like, I was ready to take on the world, bro. But
Yeah.
JR, you've had a couple days.
Yeah,
I've
man.
had numerous days where I am just like, nah, bro, I'm done.
It's gotten to the point where like our heat is like I'm talking about like we've had I think in the last couple of days like 110, 111, 109. Our nights are 100 degrees. Like it's just that stupid. And
So if
so
you're living, yeah, if you're
yeah,
living in the Coachella Valley, please, guys, be
yeah, please.
safe. I saw another report before we started recording of another hiker having to
Yeah,
be rescued off
yeah.
one of the
Yeah,
mountains here in Palm Springs.
please,
Just guys,
please,
don't be
please, please,
stupid.
don't be dumb. Like the please stop. I see it every single time, man. We have a lot of people that are snowbirds and people who just come visit. I think it's a great idea to go up, high to go up one of the hikes, go up to bump and grind, and just like not bring any water. It's like
So dumb.
it's so dumb, or like not bring any type of like headgear to protect yourself from the sun. Like just don't. And they go at 1 o'clock. Just don't, guys. Don't just don't.
And
Relax.
don't think
Go
that
by
we're
your
not
pool. Yeah.
and don't think we're not picking on our friends too, like Chick and JR's sister too.
Yeah.
They do occasionally go hiking in the summer, and we both were like,
Just dumb,
guys, just
stupid,
it's
don't.
not worth it. Just don't be
No,
dumb. So
no.
not that they're dumb people. I'm just saying is that
We
we're
have
watching out. We care for our own.
yeah, we have
And
dumb moments. We're all human. I understand that, but specifically when people tell you who are from here not to go at certain times, specifically when heat stroke is a very possible thing for you,
yeah,
don't do it. Hey guys,
guys,
you guys have a good one.
you guys have a good one. Peace as always. Have a good night. We'll see you next week.
Peace.